people heard, he spoke, and the sun and the moon and the stars and the earth and the trees and everything in it, and he created angels to serve him. And everything that he created was good. In fact, once he created Adam and Eve, the first humans, then he said, "It is very, very good." And so everything God created was holy and perfect. And Adam and Eve were placed in this beautiful garden, and they were given a relationship with God. And it was amazing because they could walk in the garden with God, and they had this wonderful connection to him. But there was an angel who thought that he could be better than God. And so that's how all sin really starts off, is thinking that we know better than God. And so this angel was kicked out of heaven along with a third of the angels, and we know him today as Satan. And Satan came to the garden, and I'm sure some of you have probably heard he tempted Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve disobeyed God. They sinned. That's what sin is. It's a rebellion against our perfect Creator. And because God, in all his holiness, cannot be near sin, cannot have a relationship with a sinful human, he had to kick them out of the garden. And Adam and Eve experienced what we experience today, like suffering, disease, tears, all those things that we're tormented with today, Adam and Eve experienced. And they had children, and their children's children had children, and people started to multiply. But God, in all of his goodness, still loved them, which was amazing. Which is amazing. Because even in their open rebellion, God had a plan to save them. And so he looked down on his earth and all the people that he created, and he gave us 10 laws, 10 commandments. Some of you might know them as the Big 10. They are, you shall have no other God before me, should not make any idols, any graven images, shall remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain, you shall obey your parents, you shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not lie, and you shall not covet. And we look at those and we think, oh, I haven't done anything really bad, like I haven't murdered anyone or anything, but the Bible tells us that even if we hate someone in our heart, then it's like we've murdered them. Because God doesn't just look on our outward appearance and what we do, God looks at our heart and he knows us intimately. And so, God gave us these 10 commandments. He also said in an institution, a promise, he said, if you, the 10 commandments were set as not something so that we could try and live up to them. We should look at the 10 commandments and want to obey them, but they were set in place so that we could know that we're sinners, so that we could see our life and see that we have sinned. I've broken all 10 of them. So the second step was for them to ask for forgiveness. Once they've seen that they had sinned, then they were supposed to ask for forgiveness. And this is a very important step because the people forgot this step. The third step was for them to sacrifice an animal, like a goat or a sheep or something, to take their place. It was essentially they were putting their sins on this animal and then killing it so that the animal was dying with their sins. So through the 10 commandments, they realized they were sinners, and then they asked for forgiveness, and then they killed this animal. Well, this went on for a long time, and people started just killing the animal, and they forgot, and they skipped over that second step of forgiveness. And a lot of time passed, but God still looked on his people and still had such a love for them that God, this is a really hard concept, but God in all of his holiness, came down to earth. And people debate about this, and there are big discussions, and it's really hard to understand, but he was fully God and fully human. And he came to earth, and there are so many wonderful stories about him in the Gospels. I would encourage you to read them. In the Gospels, in the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you can read the accounts of what Jesus did here on earth, and they're pretty amazing, but I want to point out two separate kind of stories. Jesus loved to tell stories, which I guess that's kind of why I'm up here telling a story. So there's one story that goes over really well in third world countries, but I'm going to try it here in the city of Greenville. Jesus said, "Who among you, if he has 100 sheep and one of them goes missing, will not leave the 99 and go searching for that lost sheep? And when he finds it, won't he pick it up and put it on his shoulders and take it home and say, 'Rejoice with me, I found my lost sheep'?" And then Jesus said, "There is more rejoicing in heaven over one lost sinner who repents than over the 99. And I just want you all to know tonight that God is a God who is looking for you. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. And if you'll turn to him, then he will pick you up, and he will put you on his shoulders, and there will be much, much rejoicing in heaven. Another little point about Jesus' life that I'd like to tell you is something that happened. There were some teachers of the law. We call them Pharisees. They thought they were all that. They thought they had everything together. And they brought before Jesus a woman who they had caught in the middle of adultery. And they put her before him, and they said, "Jesus, this woman was caught in adultery. Our law says for us to stone her. What do you say?" And Jesus looked at her, and he looked at them, and he said, "You know what? He who is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone." And then all the teachers of the law filed out, from the greatest of them to the least, because they all realized, you know what? I've sinned. And in God's eyes, all sin is the same. And we're all awful, awful sinners. And that's why Jesus had to come. And so there are a lot more stories about Jesus, but I think the main point, the core of Christianity, is the fact that when Jesus came, he died. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard this. But if you think back on the three steps that I said earlier, that they were supposed to realize that they were sinners, then they were supposed to ask for forgiveness, and then they were supposed to slaughter an animal. Well, Jesus is the lamb, or the goat that they were supposed to kill and sacrifice. Because Jesus did not do anything wrong. He was perfect. He was sinless. And so when he died, he took on all the sins of the whole entire world, all the past sins, all the present sins, and all the future sins. And they nailed him to the cross. And I'm not going to go into all the aspects of that, how much physical pain he endured, because it would just be really awful. But it's important to note that not only did he suffer physical pain, he had all the sins of the entire world dumped on him, and all the shame and all the guilt, and in that, then God the Father turned his face away. But if that's where the story left off, then we would not be here, because that would not be good news. So that is not how it ends. Jesus died, yes, but then 3 days later, he came back to life. And in that, he conquers both sin and death, so that when we look at the 10 Commandments and we see the laws and see how we've broken them and see that we are sinners, when we ask for forgiveness, then Jesus' sacrifice is there for us, and we can accept that. And yeah, so I think that's everything.